Okay, so we're gonna take a look at the mesh packer so we can end up with proper looking rocks in our environment. Just like in this scene here, if you look closely, there's not going to be any rock that's going to be clipping or that's like unnatural. They all look like they belong in the environment and they are all one piece. So I'm going to head on over to a scene that I'm working on and redo everything there and start it from scratch. Alright, so here's an area that I'm working on and I'm following the same technique here. I still have a bunch more to go and cover the entire scope. And I'm gonna redo everything that I did here over on this side. So first we need to make sure our editor utility widgets are up and running. And we are going to head on over to the foliage tool. And I already loaded the rocks that I spawned here. So I'm going to paint them here first, and then we are going to clean them up. So even though I need to paint all the way from here to there, it's going to be massive. I'm gonna need to spawn at least like 50,000 rocks to cover this entire scope here. So we're not gonna do that. We're going to work in chunks. We're gonna break it up bit by bit, so you know the editor doesn't crash. So I'm gonna start from this section, maybe. Yeah, from this slope. 600 is good. 200 is good. Alright, that's good enough. I pay attention to the numbers here, like this is already a lot. And we don't want more than 5,000 of each. So if you look closely, this looks like crap and we need to clean it up. We need it to start looking like this area here. So it belongs to the environment. It looks like it's part of the ground, it's not some carpet. So first, we need to convert them to get elements. So we can leave the foliage tool now, so we can have more space. And we're gonna need to load up our array element here. So I'm gonna grab all these static meshes, and I'm gonna load them into here, and then I'm going to convert them. Alright, so it finished converting them, and now each rock here is its own get blueprint. And now we need to snap them. We need to unclip them out of the ground. So we need to populate this array here with the rocks. And then we're just going to do a global snap. And that's going to make sure it brings everything out of the ground and nothing is clipping. Okay, so that's our rocks. They're out of the ground now. So next, we need to jump into the editor and start simulating physics on all of these rocks so they pack themselves together. But before we do that, we need to check a few things here. So the friction here, this is basically if it comes in contact with something, it's gonna start damping its simulation. It's gonna start slowing down over time. So you're not gonna be using this option here a lot. You're gonna only be using it for things on a slope that are supposed to look like they're drooping down. But in this scenario, we're not gonna be using it. However, we will be using the latch collision. So the latch collision, it just means that when the mesh hits something, it's going to stick to it and it's going to continue to simulate physics even though it's stuck on it. And we have two things here to check. We have the latch landscape, so when it comes in contact with the landscape, it's going to stick, and we need this for this scenario here. For the static meshes latch, this is if you have meshes in the environment that are supposed to be part of the landscape. So if we spawn the rocks, if we spawn some of these rocks on this bigger rock here and we wanted it to stick to it, we would need to load the static mesh, this rock, into this variable here. However, this is just a scenario for the landscape, so we are good to go now and we can jump into Pi. However, since this is like 10,000 or 15,000 of these blueprints, it's gonna take a while to load in. Alright, so we just loaded into the editor and we are ready to start simulating physics. So the way to start simulating physics on all of these is with this button here, and when we need to stop it, we will need to hit this button here. So a few things to keep in mind. Depending on your scenario, when you start simulating physics, some things will explode. So a good thing to keep in mind, if you know that things are going to explode and start flying out, you might want to start simulating physics and then instantly stop it and then start it back again, just so it can dampen that explosion at the very beginning. However, for this area here, I don't think it's going to explode. So since there's a lot of these, it's going to lag and it's going to take a while to pack itself. Alright, I think this is good enough. I'm going to disable it now. Okay, let's take a look. Yep, this is good enough. So, once you're happy with the packing, you can go ahead and save it. Before we exit out of the editor or the plane editor, we need to save it before we leave, or it's just gonna revert back to how it was. So I'm just gonna go ahead and save it now, and I'm gonna stop the simulation. And then I'm going to load everything back. Okay, that took a while, but that's expected because we are working with a lot of data. So now we have our beautiful looking rocks. They look natural and nothing is gimmicky. Right, so this area looks proper and it looks packed just like this area. I probably spawned a lot more here than I did over here. So now we are ready to convert all of these into an HISM component, because this is not going to be okay to have a new game because all of these are get elements. We need to bake them now. So to do that, just head on over to this area and I'm going to empty this array. And I'm gonna load all the meshes of the rocks into the oven. And I'm gonna have this checked. What this is gonna do is it's going to make sure that all the things that it bakes are deleted after it's baked. Alright, and I'm gonna go ahead and bake it. Alright, now it's baked, and if you select one of these meshes, you can see that they are called BPSM baked, and that's what we want. So now we can select just any one of them and convert to HISM, and that selected mesh is going to be converted to an HISM component. So you see this one has been converted now, and we can do the same for all of them until they are all HISM components. Okay, that's pretty much it. And that concludes how we pack these meshes, how we turn foliage into properly and naturally looking rocks. And now I can just keep going and I repeat the same thing for this area. Okay, next we're going to be taking a look at the spline spawning and how to use them for places like structures or environmental structures.